A girl named Marika mysteriously died in her own home. Her naked body was tightly wrapped in a white cloth. Her once beautiful face had been covered with a horrifying fox mask. With her tragic death, a dark shadow fell over the entire village. But the real nightmare was only beginning. One day, the young detective Hajime and Miyuki received an unusual telegram. It said that their old friend Marika, who had been part of their adventure group 6 years earlier, had passed away. Hajime immediately decided to attend her funeral. They boarded a train and returned to the place where they had once shared that unforgettable adventure by Ako Village. An accident during a camping trip 6 years ago had forged an unbreakable bond between the 10 teenagers. Back then, Akira was bitten by a venomous snake, and everyone worked together to save her life. Hajime still remembered suggesting that they tie all of their shoelaces together with plastic bottles to make a makeshift flotation device so they could carry Akira downstream to find help. And that plan ultimately saved her life. On the train, Hajime and Miyuki ran into Shinpei, who had also received the telegram. The three of them traveled to Byako Village together. Along the way, Shinpei told Hajime that 13 years earlier, Rin's father had remarried Marika's mother, making Rin and Marika sisters. Although they had both kept their original family names, when they arrived at Marika's house, they found the rest of their old friends already waiting there: Shinobu, Ryo, Akira, Kotaro, Misaki, and Riku. But Rin's very first words left everyone stunned. Marika's funeral had already taken place 2 months earlier, and she had never sent that telegram. Even more disturbing was the way Marika had died. She had been found dead inside her family's storage shed, completely naked except for a white cloth wrapped around her body, with a terrifying white fox mask covering her face. Her appearance was exactly the same as the local legend known as the Fox's Wedding. According to the legend, on clear nights, mysterious lights appear deep in the mountains as a fox wedding procession, and anyone who sees them is doomed to suffer misfortune. The villagers believed Marika had been cursed by the white fox spirit. With nothing left to do for the dead, Hajime and the others paid their respects to Marika. Coincidentally, the village's Obon festival was taking place, along with a ceremony called fox fire floating. The young women of the village would dress as fox brides and sit silently before the altar of the white fox shrine throughout the night without speaking to anyone. At the same time, villagers would release lanterns carrying written prayers into the river and let them drift away to honor the spirits of the dead. Everyone decided to stay for the festival as one final farewell to Marika. The next day, the boys played soccer on the old field near the village, just like they had when they were kids. Hajime blasted the ball with a powerful kick, sending it flying into a nearby rice field. Riku wanted to go retrieve it, but Ryo quickly stopped him. The rice was still growing, and the villagers would be furious if anyone stepped into the field, so they reluctantly gave up on retrieving the ball. The soccer ball was left behind in the dried-up rice field. As night fell, the Fox Fire Floating Festival was about to begin. Rin's mother helped everyone prepare everything they would need for the night. As the chosen fox bride, Rin headed to the shrine early to get ready for the ceremony. The others decided to stop by the shrine to see Rin before heading to the river to release their lanterns. As they passed the shrine, they saw Rin sitting quietly before the altar. Hajime greeted her, but since the fox bride was forbidden to speak, Rin gave everyone a gentle wave. The group then continued on to the river. Akira and Ryo were already waiting there, and Shinpei soon arrived from behind. Everyone had gathered at the riverbank except for Kotaro, who was nowhere to be seen. They wrote messages for Marika on their lanterns. Then they released them into the river to honor her memory. But even after an hour had passed, Kotaro still had not shown up. Just as everyone began wondering where he was, 2 lanterns drifting side by side caught their attention. As the lanterns floated closer, they realized they were attached to an inflatable raft, and someone appeared to be lying inside it. Hajime pushed through the crowd and saw that the person lying inside was wearing the same terrifying fox mask. He had been stabbed in the abdomen and was already dead. When Hajime removed the mask, he was shocked to discover that the victim was Kotaro. A wave of terror instantly swept over everyone. They all believed it was another curse from the white fox spirit. But Hajime refused to believe that. He immediately recognized the inflatable raft as the very same one they had used 6 years earlier to carry Akira downstream for emergency rescue. But Rin's father insisted that he had locked the raft inside his storage shed long ago. So how had it suddenly appeared tonight carrying another dead body? Hajime was certain that this was no curse. It was murder, and the killer had to be one of the friends from that camping trip 6 years ago. Hajime opened one of the lanterns and estimated when the body had been launched by examining how much the candle had burned. He then asked Miyuki to measure the speed of the river's current. Using those calculations, he concluded that the raft had been released from a fishing spot about 450 meters upstream. The group immediately rushed to investigate the location. As he ran, Hajime carefully calculated the time. He realized the entire route was made up of steep, uneven stone steps. There was no way any vehicle could have been used. Even running at full speed, it would take at least 6 minutes to reach the fishing spot. Adding the time needed to dump the body, a round trip would take no less than 20 minutes. When they arrived at the fishing spot, everyone searched desperately for clues. They found a burned matchstick, a blood-stained knife, and Kotoro's cell phone. But there was one major problem. Hajime realized that no one present had enough time to commit the murder. From the moment they gathered by the river to release the lanterns until Kotoro's body was discovered, everyone had remained within sight of one another. Although a few people stepped away briefly, none of them had been gone for more than 5 minutes. Just as Hajime hit a dead end, one person suddenly came to mind. She had been part of the expedition team 6 years ago, and throughout the entire festival, she had never been within anyone's sight. That person was Rin, who had been serving as the fox bride that night. Once the ceremony began, every villager gathered by the river to release lanterns. No one stayed behind at the shrine. That gave Rin the perfect opportunity to dispose of the body before quietly returning to her seat. To test his theory, Hajime asked Akira and Riku to accompany him back to White Fox Shrine. On the way, he asked whether anything unpleasant had happened among them 6 years earlier. As far as he remembered, there had never been any conflict serious enough to lead to murder. Akira recalled that Kotaro had a crush on Marika back then. He had tried every possible way to get her contact information. Akira happened to discover his secret, and because she was distracted by what she had seen, she accidentally got bitten by a snake. In her memory, everyone had always gotten along well with each other. However, Riku remained unusually quiet. It seemed like something had been weighing on his mind all these years. As they walked, he sincerely apologized to Akira. Back then, after Akira was bitten by the snake and desperately needed medical help, Hajime suggested making a makeshift life jacket using plastic bottles and everyone's shoelaces to float her downstream. Everyone agreed to help. Everyone except Riku. At the time, everyone thought he was selfish for refusing to help his friend, but he had his own reason. Those shoes had been bought by his mother after working several part-time jobs. He simply couldn't bring himself to cut off the shoelaces. Only now, 6 years later, did Riku finally find the courage to say he was sorry, but Akira told him she had never blamed him. After all, Riku had rowed with everything he had to get her downstream. When they arrived at the shrine, Hajime quietly called out to Rin. There was no response. Sensing something was wrong, Hajime gently touched her shoulder. Her body suddenly toppled backward. The fox mask slipped from her face. Rin was dead. She had been stabbed through the back of the neck, severing her spinal cord with a single fatal strike. Now everyone's alibi had become absolutely airtight. When they passed the shrine earlier, Rin had still been alive. She had even waved at them. For the next 10 minutes, everyone remained together by the river. No one had been away for more than 5 minutes. So how could the killer have murdered 2 people in such a short time? The investigation reached another dead end. Hajime wandered around the shrine alone. By chance, he entered a small storage shed. Inside hung dozens of fox masks. They were identical to the ones worn by Rin and Kotaro. When Hajime walked back outside, only Ryo and Misaki were still waiting for him. Everyone else had gone with Rin's father to report the murders. Even so, Hajime still believed the killer had to be one of the original 10 friends, so he asked Ryo and Misaki about what had happened 6 years ago. The two of them mentioned 2 seemingly insignificant incidents. The first involved Riku's shoelaces. Back then, Riku had been the only one who refused to give up his shoelaces. Kotaro and Marika constantly criticized him for it. Shinpei eventually got so angry that he even got into a fight with Kotaro. The second incident involved Rin. Back then, Shinobu tried to force a kiss on Rin, causing Rin to burst into tears and run out of the tent. She almost got attacked by a swarm of hornets. Fortunately, Kotaro trapped the hornets inside a plastic bottle and saved her. After hearing both stories, Hajime felt the final pieces slowly falling into place. The next morning, he returned to the river once again. Standing atop the embankment, he suddenly noticed something. The soccer ball they had kicked into the rice field the day before was now floating quietly in the river. The moment he saw it, everything clicked. He immediately climbed higher and examined the surrounding terrain. Behind the embankment lay the rice field. At the far end of it stood a floodgate. He quickly measured the distance. Traveling from the riverbank where they had released the lanterns to the floodgate and back would take less than 5 minutes. Now he understood. Kotaro's body had never drifted down from the fishing spot upstream. The killer had used a far more ingenious method. They had used the floodgate. Now only one mystery remained. Why had the killer staged Marika's body to resemble the fox's wedding? And why kill two people within such a short span of time? Hajime returned to White Fox Shrine once again. Thanks to Miyuki's observation, Hajime noticed a painting of the fox's wedding hanging on the shrine wall. He also noticed something strange. Although the shrine was cleaned only once a year, the center of the floor was spotless. Only the corners were covered in thick dust. Hajime looked once more at the place where Rin had been sitting earlier. Then he turned toward the sliding paper door. A small, unusual hole in the door caught his attention. Just then, the investigation Hajime had requested from the police finally had a result. The telegram sent to everyone had actually been sent from the storage shed at Marika's house, the very place where her body was discovered. Hajime immediately rushed to that warehouse. He picked up a phone and dialed a number. Just as he expected, the landline inside the warehouse began to ring. At that moment, every clue finally came together, and Hajime had finally unraveled the entire mystery. After that, Hajime arranged to meet the killer at the fishing spot that night. The killer arrived as promised. It was Riku. Hajime lit the first lantern and gently placed it into the river to mourn Marika. Then he slowly revealed how everything began. Marika's death was not a carefully planned murder. It was an accident caused by a sudden outburst of anger. That day, Riku and Marika had an argument at the shrine. During the struggle, Riku was cut by a knife, and his blood splattered onto Marika's clothes. So after killing Marika, he stripped off her clothes and used them to wipe away the blood at the scene. But a naked body would immediately raise suspicion. That was when Riku noticed the painting of the fox's wedding on the shrine wall. An idea suddenly came to him. He dressed Marika's body to resemble the fox's wedding legend, successfully misleading the police. And the reason the center of the shrine floor was cleaner than the corners was because Riku had cleaned up the area where the blood had splattered. The dust left around the edges became the evidence he overlooked. After Riku killed Marika, there was no way for him to turn back. The flames of revenge only grew stronger. After that, Riku used the telephone inside Marika's family's storage shed to send telegrams to everyone one by one. Using Marika's funeral as an excuse, he gathered everyone back to Byako village. There, he began carrying out the next stage of his murder plan. Hajime's second lantern was for Kotaro. He carefully exposed Riku's trick involving the floodgate and the rice field. Riku had planted Kotaro's phone at the fishing spot to strengthen the illusion that the body had come from upstream. Before nightfall, he had already killed Kotaro. Then he hid the body in the inflatable raft inside the drainage channel of the dried-up rice field. When fox fire floating began, Riku secretly opened the upstream floodgate and allowed water to flow into the channel. Then, while everyone was distracted, he left for a few minutes, placed the body into the channel, lit the lantern, and opened the downstream floodgate. The water from the rice field channel immediately pushed the inflatable raft into the river, creating the illusion that it had drifted down from upstream. Because the slow river current delayed the lantern's movement, the candle burned for exactly the amount of time needed for the lantern to drift from the fishing spot to the crime scene. The soccer ball was the final proof. It had fallen into the dried-up rice field channel. There was no way it could have entered the river by itself. The only explanation was that the water from the drainage channel carried it into the river. Hajime's third lantern was for Rin. Riku had already killed Rin before everyone set out for the shrine, and the person everyone saw waving from the shrine was not Rin at all. It was Riku. Beforehand, he covered his hand with white powder and hid behind the sliding door. He reached his hand through a hole he had secretly made in the door, slipped it inside Rin's kimono sleeve, and pretended to be Rin while waving at everyone. Because it was dark, the candlelight was dim, and the distance was far, nobody noticed that the person waving was not actually Rin. After that, Riku quickly left through the back entrance, took a different route, caught up with everyone, and joined them as if nothing had happened. The entire process also took less than 5 minutes, and there had to be traces of the white powder he used still left inside the killer's pocket. Hajime asked Riku to take out his right pocket. A small amount of white powder slowly fell onto the ground. That was the undeniable evidence. Faced with Hajime's deduction, Riku finally admitted everything. He picked up the fourth lantern and slowly placed it into the river. He said this one was for his mother. Then he quietly revealed everything. 6 years ago, because Riku refused to give up his shoelaces, he was bullied by Kotaro and Marika. they secretly put the hornets Kotaro had captured into Riku's water bottle. What they didn't know was that Riku's mother had previously suffered an allergic shock after being stung by a hornet. A second sting could trigger a severe allergic reaction and take her life. And the hornet that flew out of Riku's water bottle happened to sting his mother while she was packing his belongings. That day, Riku's mother died. At the time, Riku's father told him that she had died from heart disease. It was not until 6 years later, shortly before his father's death, that Riku learned the truth about how his mother had really died. After that, Riku came to Byako village and confronted Marika, but Marika casually said that she and Kotaro had only wanted to scare him because they thought he was a selfish person who refused to help his friends. Her careless attitude completely ignited the hatred and grief buried inside Riku. At that moment, he lost control of himself, and he killed Marika. After hearing Riku's confession, Hajime remained silent for a long time. Then he urged Riku to turn himself in. Just then, the others came looking for them. To protect Riku's final dignity, Hajime chose not to reveal the truth in front of everyone. At that moment, Marika's mother also arrived and called out to Riku. She told him that before Marika died, she had organized all her old greeting cards. Among them was one written for Riku. It said that she had done something terrible to him before, and the next time they met, she wanted to sincerely apologize. Those words pierced Riku's heart like a blade. His eyes filled with endless regret and pain. If that apology had come 6 months earlier, perhaps everything would have ended differently. Suddenly, a line of lights appeared on the distant mountain. They looked just like the legendary fox fire, just like the fox's wedding from the old tale. Everyone looked up. For a moment, it seemed as if they could see Marika, Kotaro, and Riku standing among the glowing lights. They were smiling, saying goodbye to their friends in this world. Misaki suggested that next year, everyone should return and release lanterns again for their friends who had passed away. At the end of the story, Hajime watched as Riku walked into the police station. Riku turned around, he smiled at Hajime and softly said goodbye. That simple farewell carried relief, separation, and one final tribute to the friendship they once shared. Hajime sat alone on the train heading home. The memories of the 10 friends laughing and playing together 6 years ago appeared once again in his mind. But those 10 friends who once shared everything with each other would never be able to gather together again.